Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's explosive story, I need your help for just a second. We're on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you watching right now can make that happen. If you enjoy real, unfiltered football analysis that doesn't hold back, hit that subscribe button right now. It takes 2 seconds, costs you nothing, and helps us grow this community of true football fans who aren't afraid of the truth. Let's build something special together. Now let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to hear is absolutely wild. This isn't your typical sports debate where everyone plays nice and dances around the real issues. This is Coach Mangini walking into that studio and dropping truth bombs that left the entire football world speechless. When Shedeur Sanders' name came up, Mangini didn't just share his opinion. He went absolutely scorched earth on the Cleveland Browns organization, and what followed was one of the most brutal takedowns of an NFL front office we've seen in recent memory. Chris Broussard tried to keep things civil, tried to maintain that professional sports media atmosphere, but Mangini wasn't having any of it. This man showed up with receipts, with facts, with the kind of conviction that only comes from someone who genuinely understands the game at the highest level. This wasn't a debate between colleagues. This was a complete systematic destruction of everything the Browns have been trying to sell to their fans in the football world. Here's where things get absolutely fascinating. The Browns wanted everyone to believe they had some master plan when they selected Shedeur Sanders with the 5th overall pick. They wanted the narrative to be that this was all calculated, all part of some brilliant long-term strategy that only the brilliant minds in their organization could comprehend. Spoiler alert, that's complete nonsense, and Mangini made absolutely certain that everyone watching understood just how ridiculous that story really is. Into this conversation walks Mangini, and he's got no filter whatsoever. While every other talking head in sports media is carefully crafting their words to avoid stepping on toes, this man comes in speaking pure, unfiltered truth. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. That's what made it so devastating. It was that calm, measured delivery that cut so much deeper than any screaming match ever could. It's the tone of someone who knows beyond any shadow of doubt that they're absolutely right, and they're tired of watching everyone else pretend otherwise. Mangini essentially said what every real football person has been thinking, but nobody else had the courage to say out loud. The Browns front office wouldn't recognize elite quarterback talent if it walked right through their door and introduced itself. That's brutal. That's harsh. But here's the thing, it's completely accurate, and that's exactly why it landed with such devastating impact. Let's talk about that 5th overall pick for a moment, because this is where things get truly absurd. Shedeur Sanders was clearly, without any reasonable debate, the most NFL-ready quarterback in that entire draft class. He had everything you could possibly want. The accuracy, the decision-making, the leadership presence, the poise under pressure. These are qualities that scouts spend entire careers trying to find in prospects. Yet somehow, the Browns let 4 other teams make their selections before finally pulling the trigger. That's not strategy. That's not playing it smart. That's pure dysfunction, trying to disguise itself as competence. At this point, you have to genuinely wonder what's happening in those draft meetings. Is it intentional sabotage? Is it groupthink where everyone's afraid to speak up? Is it just complete incompetence at the highest level? According to Mangini, the delay in selecting Shedeur had absolutely nothing to do with concerns about the kid's ability or readiness. It was entirely about the Browns trying to look clever, trying to outsmart everyone else in the room, and in the process, they completely outsmarted themselves right into looking foolish. Meanwhile, Mangini's sitting there watching this entire circus unfold, and you can practically see the disbelief on his face. This isn't complicated. The kid can play at an elite level. You identify that talent, you draft that talent, you build your entire operation around that talent. It's genuinely that straightforward. But instead of doing the obvious thing, Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry went into full spin mode, throwing around corporate buzzwords like they're going out of style, development timelines, cultural fit, long-term organizational vision, all these fancy phrases that ultimately mean absolutely nothing when you're trying to hide the fact that you messed up. Mangini basically suggested that the Browns' entire draft strategy looked like it was put together by people watching highlight videos on social media, rather than actually studying film and understanding what makes quarterbacks successful at the professional level. Instead of trusting their scouts, instead of trusting what their eyes were telling them, they trusted their egos. They wanted to be the smartest guys in the room, and that desire made them look like the most confused organization in professional football. Here's what really drives the point home. Mangini didn't even need to keep repeating Shedeur's name to make his argument crystal clear. The real question he was asking cut straight to the core of everything wrong with that organization. How do you not immediately build your entire franchise around a talent like this the moment you identify him as special? Shedeur's got everything you could possibly want in a franchise quarterback. The arm talent, the football intelligence, the leadership qualities, the competitive fire that burns so hot it's impossible to ignore. This isn't just another talented prospect. This is the kind of player that changes the entire trajectory of a franchise. And the Browns looked at all of that undeniable talent and essentially said, let's make this complicated. Let's overthink this. Let's turn what should be a simple decision into some elaborate chess match that nobody else understands. Mangini didn't just criticize them like some casual observer throwing stones. He surgically dismantled their entire decision-making process with the precision of someone who's been inside those rooms, who understands exactly how these things should work, and who can spot dysfunction from a mile away. Let's be absolutely clear about something important. Mangini wasn't attacking Shedeur Sanders. Not even remotely. He made that distinction crystal clear. He was calling out Andrew Berry and the front office for trying to dress up pure organizational chaos and confusion as some kind of strategic masterstroke. It's almost comedic at this point because the only depth the Browns have right now is the massive hole they've dug for themselves with their own incompetence and inability to make clear decisions. Then you've got Jimmy Haslam hovering over all of this like the ghost of bad decisions past. Mangini didn't even need to say his name repeatedly. A few well-placed verbal jabs, and the message came through loud and clear to everyone paying attention. Mangini sees Haslam as that particular type of owner who treats an NFL franchise like it's some kind of business networking club. Loves to give speeches about vision and culture. Loves to shake hands for the cameras. Loves to talk philosophically about building something special, but couldn't tell you what's actually happening on the field if you put a playbook right in front of him. That's the kind of criticism that really stings because it hits so close to the truth that it becomes impossible to deny. So while everyone else in sports media was debating whether Shedeur Sanders should be starting this season, Mangini completely flipped the entire conversation. He basically said, if you're gonna leak information to the media about your internal thinking, then explain to everyone why you wouldn't want him starting. If you drafted him 5th overall, but you're not giving him first team reps, explain that decision because it makes absolutely no sense to anyone watching from the outside. That's when Mangini asked the one question that nobody else in sports media had the courage to ask out loud. Does this franchise even deserve a player like Shedeur Sanders? Because here's a kid who studies film obsessively, who lives and breathes competition, who carries himself like a professional from day one, who understands what it takes to win at the highest level. And the Browns are out here treating him like he's some developmental project when he's clearly ready to be the centerpiece of the entire operation. You literally cannot make this situation up. Even if you tried to write it as fiction, it would be too absurd to believe. Mangini would shut it down immediately with that calm, measured delivery and simply say, that's not how professional organizations operate. Just like that, all the elaborate explanations and corporate doublespeak evaporate into nothing. You don't draft a Shedeur Sanders to fit him into your existing plan. You draft him because he becomes the plan. Everything else adjusts around that central reality. When Mangini dropped that line, you could practically feel the entire Browns organization collectively cringe because he wasn't being emotional about it. He wasn't ranting or losing his composure. He was simply cutting through all their excuses with pure logic and undeniable facts. He dismantled their entire narrative piece by piece, like someone taking apart a puzzle they've already solved 1,000 times before. Now, Chris Broussard gave this passionate speech about how special Shedeur is, about how he possesses that rare combination of talent and intangibles that can't be taught, about how he could develop into something even greater. And sure, Chris is absolutely right about all of that. The kid is legitimately special, but here's the thing. That's not what anyone's actually debating anymore. Everyone can see the talent. Everyone recognizes the ability. The real question isn't whether Shedeur Sanders can play football at an elite level. The real issue is whether the people running the Cleveland Browns have the intelligence, the humility, and the courage to actually act on that obvious reality without getting in their own way. Because here's what everyone outside that organization sees clear as day. Fans see it, media members see it, other teams around the league definitely see it. Everyone watches Shedeur carve up defenses in practice with surgical precision. They see the laser accurate throws, they see the perfect timing and anticipation. They see the kind of composure that makes veteran quarterbacks look nervous by comparison. He's got that rare quality that you absolutely cannot teach. That calm confidence, that unshakable belief in himself that doesn't come across as arrogance, but as simple fact. You can't manufacture that presence. You can't coach that demeanor. You either have it or you don't, and Shedeur Sanders has it in abundance. Meanwhile, the Browns' brain trust is sitting in their offices waiting for some kind of divine revelation, like they need a sign from above before they can make the obvious decision that's staring them right in the face. The idea that anyone in Cleveland still views Shedeur as merely a developmental prospect is genuinely laughable. He's not here to hold a clipboard and learn the playbook slowly. He's not here to wait his turn behind inferior talent. He's here to lead this franchise. He's here to win football games. He's here to make every single person who doubted him look absolutely foolish in the process. He didn't come to Cleveland to be patient. He came to change the entire culture and trajectory of the organization. But let's dig deeper into why this is even a conversation in the first place. Why are we still having this debate months after the draft? Strip away all the corporate speak, all the carefully crafted PR statements, all the evaluation timelines and development plans, and what you find underneath is pure fear. The Browns organization is absolutely terrified. They're scared of making another mistake. They're scared of admitting they might have gotten something wrong. They're scared of actually committing fully to anything. Here's where things get really interesting. According to the Browns' latest public statements, it wasn't even Jimmy Haslam's decision to draft Shedeur Sanders. They're saying it was Andrew Berry's call as general manager. So now Haslam is publicly distancing himself from the pick, essentially using Berry as a shield. But here's where that narrative starts falling apart. Andrew Berry didn't exactly look thrilled on draft day when they made that selection. He didn't have the demeanor of someone excited about the choice they just made. More importantly, Berry said at the very beginning of draft weekend that they had absolutely no intention of selecting a quarterback. So something isn't adding up here. The math isn't mathing, as people like to say. Something smells wrong with this entire story. The players inside that locker room see it. The fans watching from home see it. The entire league around them sees it clear as day. Everyone outside that building understands what's really happening. The Browns front office knows they completely fumbled the optics of this situation from the very beginning by not fully backing Shedeur Sanders from day one. They didn't commit. They didn't rally the entire organization around their first round pick. And now they're desperately scrambling to make it look like hesitation was actually strategy, like being indecisive was somehow the smart play. Please, this isn't strategy. This is damage control happening in real time. They're treating that quarterback room like it's made of glass, terrified that putting Shedeur on the field might shatter everything into pieces. But here's the truth that nobody in Cleveland wants to acknowledge out loud. It's already broken. Shedeur isn't the problem threatening to break things. He's the solution holding everything together. He's the steel reinforcement in a crumbling structure. This whole wait-and-see approach might make some sense if you already had an elite quarterback leading the team to wins. If you had a guy putting up great numbers and taking the franchise to the playoffs, then sure you could justify being patient. But let's be completely honest about the Browns' current quarterback situation. It's not a strength. It's not even mediocre. It's a complete disaster zone pretending to be functional. And here comes Shedeur Sanders walking in, completely ready to play, carrying all the tools necessary to succeed. And they've got the nerve to tell him to wait his turn. It's absolutely wild. It's the kind of decision making that makes you question whether anyone in that building actually understands professional football. And it's not just about physical talent or arm strength or athletic ability. It's about presence. It's about leadership. It's about that intangible quality that makes everyone around you better just by being in the room. Shedeur possesses that gravitational pull that real leaders have. You feel it the moment he walks into a space. There's something different about him, something that separates him from ordinary players. So why would an owner go to the media months after the draft and publicly distance himself from the pick? Why would he feel the need to clarify that it wasn't his decision? If you genuinely don't want him on your team, why not just trade him? There are definitely teams out there that would love to have him, teams that probably wanted him in the draft but couldn't get him. The Browns have had 35 different starting quarterbacks over the last 2 decades, and none of them have been consistently good. That's not coincidence. That's organizational dysfunction at the highest level. But the fact that Shedeur not being Haslam's pick is something that needs to be clarified publicly. That's the detail that tells you everything you need to know about the chaos happening behind closed doors. It reeks of panic. It screams internal conflict and confusion. Meanwhile, this is the same Browns organization that treats major decisions like some kind of committee project where everyone gets a vote, but nobody actually takes responsibility. Everyone grabs the microphone, nobody can sing, and somehow they all think they're doing great despite the obvious disaster unfolding in front of them. It's chaos wearing a business suit and pretending to be leadership, and Shedeur is standing there as the only person in the entire building who actually knows what he's doing. So now the Browns are tiptoeing around what should be the easiest decision in franchise history, whether to start the quarterback who has outperformed every other option they have on the roster. We're talking about practices. We're talking about film study. We're talking about leadership in the locker room. Shedeur has been better than everyone else across every single metric that matters. He's sharper, more accurate, more composed, more prepared than anyone else in that quarterback room, and somehow they're still pretending this is a difficult evaluation, that it requires more time, that they need to see more before making a decision. They're not being cautious, they're being scared. This front office is absolutely terrified of getting it wrong again. So instead of stepping up and making the right call, they're choosing to get it wrong by doing nothing. They're selecting mediocrity because it feels safer than commitment. Fans see right through this strategy, or lack thereof. They've watched this exact movie too many times before. The slow motion disaster, the constant second guessing, the wasted potential and missed opportunities. They know what real talent looks like. They understand the difference between legitimate caution and paralyzing fear. And they know exactly what it means when management starts throwing around buzzwords instead of just stating the obvious truth. Start the guy. Put him on the field. He gives you the best chance to win football games. Period. End of discussion. He's got the talent of a starter. He's got the leadership of a starter. He's got the results of a starter in every practice and scrimmage. But the Browns are acting like putting him on the field would be some massive risk when the real gamble is keeping him on the bench. The real risk is wasting a franchise-changing talent because you're too proud to admit you should have known better from the beginning. The irony is almost painful to watch. They've got a potential franchise savior sitting right there in their building, ready to change the entire trajectory of the organization, and they're still squinting at him like he's some kind of riddle they need to solve, like he's a mystery that requires more investigation. Meanwhile, Mangini is waving flags and setting off fireworks trying to get their attention, basically screaming from every platform available, play the kid, start the quarterback, do the obvious thing. But the Browns can't help themselves. They're addicted to chaos. They love creating drama where none needs to exist. They'll invent quarterback controversies just for the sake of having something to talk about in press conferences. They'll manufacture problems and complications because that's what they know. That's their comfort zone. The Browns are completely hooked on overthinking everything. It's their default setting. It's how they justify their jobs and make themselves feel important. While Chris Broussard is trying his best to sprinkle optimism over this situation, deep down, he's got to know the truth. The Browns didn't have to draft Shedeur Sanders at all. There were other teams that desperately needed quarterbacks and would have taken him. There were franchises that would have killed for the opportunity to select him. So it genuinely doesn't make sense that Cleveland has him, while other teams that actually wanted him are sitting at home wondering what could have been. There's something strange happening here. There's already been talk about potential collusion in the league. There have been conversations and even legal discussions about whether teams work together against Shedeur Sanders before the draft. None of this adds up correctly. It's the kind of situation that raises more questions than answers. It's like watching someone try to convince you of something when you already know the opposite is true. Who are they trying to convince with these public statements? What purpose does it serve to go to the media now and say you didn't want him? This is a franchise that could mess up a sure thing. If you gave them gold, they'd somehow find a way to turn it into gravel. Every single time they get close to something great, they discover a new way to trip over their own feet. Every time success is within reach, they self-sabotage in spectacular fashion. It's not just frustrating anymore, it's genuinely laughable. It plays out like bad comedy because the punchlines write themselves. Shedeur isn't out here begging for opportunities or running publicity campaigns. He's not complaining complaining to reporters or demanding changes. He's just doing what he does best, showing up every single day and proving his worth. He's letting his performance speak louder than any press conference ever could. Every throw tells the story. Every snap shows his readiness. Every calm, composed moment screams that he's ready for this opportunity right now. The longer they keep him sidelined, the worse it looks. Not for Shedeur, because his talent is undeniable and eventually gets recognized. It looks terrible for the franchise, for the front office, for the entire organization. Eventually, the noise is going to become impossible to ignore. Fans won't stay patient forever. They're already getting fed up watching this unfold. The media is circling like sharks, asking the same questions over and over. When will he start? Why isn't he starting already? What's the actual reason for the delay? If the Browns could just get out of their own way, this would be simple, but they keep confusing hesitation with wisdom. They think dragging their feet makes them look smart and measured. They believe being indecisive is somehow being thoughtful and strategic. Meanwhile, the rest of the league is watching with popcorn in hand, laughing and shaking their heads, wondering how Cleveland continues to fumble its own future so consistently. Because make no mistake about it, Shedeur didn't come to Cleveland to wait patiently in line. He didn't come here to slowly develop and gradually prove himself over years. He came here to compete at the highest level immediately. He came here to win football games. And fans didn't tune in to watch another slow-motion organizational meltdown. They came to see winning football. They came to see excellence on the field. This isn't patience from the Browns. This is procrastination dressed up in professional language. This is fear wearing a business suit and pretending to be careful evaluation. And if the Browns don't figure this out soon, they won't just be answering questions about playing time and roster decisions. They'll be explaining to everyone how they managed to let generational talent sit on the bench, while the franchise once again tripped over its own incompetence and self-destructed in real time for the entire football world to witness. Alright, that's where we're gonna wrap this one up. If you made it all the way through, you're clearly someone who cares about real football analysis and honest conversations about what's happening in the NFL. So do me a massive favor right now. Hit that like button because it genuinely helps push this content to more people who need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss these deep dives into the biggest stories happening in professional football. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think about this entire situation. Do you think Shedeur should be starting right now? Do you think the Browns are making a catastrophic mistake? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Share this video with your friends, your family, anyone who loves real football conversation without the corporate filter. This story is absolutely far from over. The drama is just getting started and something's gotta give eventually. Stay tuned because we'll be following this situation closely and bringing you every update and explosive development as it happens. I'll catch you in the next one.